Hey guys, and welcome to the Witching Hour. It is my pleasure to narrate these stories of the unexplainable. If you have any experiences for me to narrate on this channel, you can email me at thewitchinghourstories@gmail.com. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed this and would like to support the channel. This happened about 7 years ago when I was 19 years old. Back then, I loved getting into mischief and doing unordinary things for entertainment, which led to my love for exploring abandoned houses and searching for the paranormal. I still go exploring on occasion, but I am much more safe about it as I have gotten older. On a usual day, my boyfriend at the time and our two friends, Matt and Brandy, were all hanging out at the house my ex and I were renting. Brandy and I were thinking of things we would like to do for the evening as we were getting bored sitting around. We had been talking for a while about going ghost hunting, so we decided to look up locations nearby that are considered haunted. And being in Virginia, there are no shortages. We found a website that said there was a haunted tunnel about an hour from where we lived. We read that, supposedly, this tunnel housed quite a few murders, including a group of girls getting shot by an unknown killer while they were hanging out and drinking there. The year of the murders wasn't disclosed, but we jumped at the chance to go. We all got into Brandy's car and headed out after Google mapping the location. My boyfriend and our two friends smoked marijuana frequently, so they were smoking a joint on the ride up there. I, on the other hand, did not smoke, so I just brought an alcoholic beverage with me to drink. We were just normal young adults getting into mischief and did whatever we felt like. The first incident had nothing to do with the supernatural, rather probably occurred from our altered states of mind. We had taken a gas station break about 30 minutes into the drive. Matt decided he wanted to drive, so we hopped in the car and pulled off the parking lot and turned down the road immediate to our left, which turned out to be the wrong side of the highway, like as in facing oncoming traffic, and we didn't even realize it until we were a few minutes down the road. We managed not to be seen by the cops as we got back on the right side of the highway, and my ex and I vowed to never let Matt drive us anywhere ever again. Without any more incidents on the drive, we turned off the highway onto an old forgotten road that led to the tunnel. When we approached it, we parked the car. Despite it being almost directly off the highway, it was eerily quiet. Somehow, we managed to make perfect timing as the sun had just started to set past the woodline, casting a red and orange glow across the sky. A chill of excitement ran down my spine, and I encouraged the group into the tunnel. The tunnel wasn't anything special, much like all the others I had seen. It looked old. Graffiti had been tagged along the sides. We took out Brandy's EMF reader, and for about 25 to 30 minutes, we walked around the entire area. It never flashed red or even orange, which indicated that nothing paranormal was in the area. I called out to the air that if any ghosts were present, we weren't there to harm them, and added that we wanted to know their names and the story of how they died, and absolutely nothing happened. I was a little disappointed, but we continued to drink and they smoked yet another joint. We were having an overall good time just being somewhere random and hanging out as it became nightfall. After a while, though, we sort of got bored and decided to head back home. I had a little buzz going and was feeling pretty good. And at this time, the sun had fully set into night, but I did not feel scared. We started back to the car with me trudging behind the group, taking in the scenery and taking one last look at the tunnel. I had just turned around when we heard a clunky car engine rev and gravel being kicked up by tires behind us. And in horror, I turned to look behind us, and I saw two headlights on an old gray Cadillac peeling out of the tunnel. We all panicked and started sprinting towards our parked car. In the panic, I slipped on the gravel, almost falling on my face. My boyfriend looked back and yelled at me to hurry as I picked myself up off the ground. The Cadillac came speeding past as close as they could without hitting us. We flung ourselves in the car and were all gasping as we watched the mysterious car drive down the road and out of sight. "What the hell just happened?" I asked, trying to calm myself down. It just came out of nowhere, and I looked down that road and it was practically undrivable. I'm pretty sure I saw a dead end sign when we came in. "Let's just get out of here," my boyfriend said. And with that, we drove out of there in a hurry, and on the way out, we did in fact see a dead end sign as we pulled out. This affirmed that there was no possible way for the driver to have come from that side of the tunnel without passing us. We had been there for hours. There was nothing on the road except a small creek that had ran alongside of it, the woodline, and the tunnel itself. We were able to laugh about it later that night, noting at just how random it was for that to happen. Sometimes, though, I look back and get this unsettling feeling that as we were goofing around and partying, a creeper was probably watching us the entire time. This happened when I was living in an apartment complex in the city. I won't disclose where for privacy reasons. The day of this story, I remember being bored out of my mind in the apartment. I group texted my neighbors, who were my close friends at the time, telling them to save me from my perpetual boredom. And someone mentioned taking a bike ride from the apartments to the local greenway. I thought this was a good idea since the last time we met up and went, it was a lot of fun. No one was in any rush that day, so we just coasted alongside the sidewalks and took our usual shortcuts. I was much more observant of the surroundings with us going so slow, and I noticed a desolate structure a bit back from the road. We had probably passed it 1,000,000 times without noticing because it was a faded brick industrial building. We had a lot of these in our city, so it just blended in the background. I yelled for us to take a break, and we slowed to a stop right before the old building. My two friends talked and took out their cigarettes to smoke while I skimmed over the surroundings. I looked for a sign to tell me what it used to be, but found none. For some reason, that day, curiosity got the better of me. I told everyone that I wanted to snoop around the building and possibly try to find a way inside. We casually walked around the back, slipping away from the traffic of the street. The windows and doorways in the front were boarded up. When we got to the back side of the alley, one of my friends pointed to one of the back doors that was not boarded up and slightly ajar. This encouraged me to get my friends on board to go inside. One of them was adamant that he wasn't going inside because the building was likely abandoned due to asbestos. We all debated like this for a few minutes. I was also worried about getting caught since it was right off a main road where cops patrolled frequently. We decided that we would only go in for a few minutes, and despite some of the group not thinking it was a good idea, we decided we would all go in together, with safety in numbers in mind. We stepped outside, and hardly any sunlight was getting through the boarded-up windows. I guess that the side of the building where we entered was where the offices had been at one time. Going down the narrow hallway, the gaps where the doors used to be were pitch black, hiding what was inside the rooms. I felt like I was going through a haunted house, not knowing if some homeless man or crazy person would come jumping out of one of the doorways as I passed them. No one had a flashlight on them, so the darkness remained unseen as we made our way to a large opening. The opening led to a room that looked like a production area that had a very 70s vibe to it. Anything that had been in the room had long been taken out and only dusty old tables remained. We took a break from our exploration and smoked. As we talked about how creepy the place was, our eyes were wandering, checking our surroundings. The place had an unsafe feeling to it, despite it being just an old factory. I was expecting someone to jump out of nowhere at any moment. As our eyes kept scanning the room for anything out of the ordinary, one of my friends said that he thought he saw clothing on the far end table in the corner of the production room. We all made our way over to the corner in curiosity. It turned out to be a black bra and a pair of women's underwear in a silhouette. They appeared to have been recently put there, as they did not show the same amount of dust cover and age as the rest of the room. I was really confused as to why there would be a bra and underwear at a place like this. Then it dawned on me that maybe there was some weirdo that hid out in there. But the sight unsettled us enough to get the hell out of there. To this day, I think back and wonder what that bra and underwear were doing there. I think of how easily someone could have jumped from those dark corridors and did God knows what to us. My hope is that some people had decided to get frisky there and something had happened to where the clothes were not put back on. Or my more paranoid side thinks that some squatter had some creepy obsession with women's underclothing. I surely hope it was not the latter. My biggest advice for fellow explorers is to always be aware of your surroundings, and if something seems unsafe, then get the hell out of there as safely and quickly as possible. My boss is an awesome guy, and I like to hang out with him and his family outside of work. But whenever they invite me over to their house to play cards and darts, I always hesitate. Have you ever been in a house that just creeps the absolute hell out of you? I consider myself not to be scared of much, especially the paranormal. I live alone on a mountain, far from anyone, and love exploring by myself. I should not be scared of a house. I always talk myself into going. It gets lonely up here in the mountains sometimes. The card games, light conversations, and laid-back drinking is always enjoyable. I just have this feeling that there is a presence of another kind invisible to us in the room when I'm there. One incident that proved my suspicions occurred while his brother was in town and I had been invited to play darts and have a few drinks with them. As the night progressed and we got past the formalities of conversations, my boss's brother and I started to talk about the shared strange feeling we get while being in the house. He tells me how sometimes when he comes to visit for a few days, and when he is alone in the house, he will see shadows appear out of the corner of his eye. My boss's wife walks in and she naturally replies, "Oh yeah, the ghost that lives in the hallway and stairs." We all joked that we were just paranoid. I think that we were in a way trying to comfort ourselves so that we got our minds off of the strange fear. After about 12 a.m., I decided I should go back home and get some rest. My boss and his wife insisted that since I had been drinking, that I should stay the night on the couch in the living room. I considered and thought that I would probably be better off taking their offer since I had been drinking a little, and my house was over a 45-minute drive away. After everyone else went upstairs to bed, I got settled in with the blanket and pillow that they had provided me. The only light that was coming in was the moonlight and the street light coming from the blinds. I tried to be logical with myself as I started getting the creeps again. Once I had talked myself down, I felt my eyes roll back in my head as I fell asleep. Moments later, I started to hear footsteps coming down the stairs, which woke me. I expected one of the family members to appear around the corner off the stairs, but after the footsteps sounded like they were on the last stair, I waited and saw no one appear. I sat up and looked for the TV remote and turned the TV on for background noise. After watching for a few minutes, I drifted off back to sleep and nothing else strange happened that night. Fast forward a few months ago, and my boss asked me to watch their dog while they were on vacation for 4 days. I say sure, why not? The incident of that one night was gone from my mind. I loved their dog Sadie and did not mind feeding and keeping her company after I got off work. The dog is absolutely adorable and always runs up to me whenever I walk in the front door. On this day, I actually had to go and find her, which I thought was very strange. After looking all over the house, I found her at the bottom of the basement stairs. She seems as if she doesn't see me and is staring at something else on the stairs. I knew she got anxious when no one was home. I say, "Come here, girl," and make a clicking sound with my teeth. She doesn't move and keeps looking around and past me towards the stairway. I click one more time, then silence. Then a couple moments later, I hear in a mocking and snarling tone behind me, "Come here, girl," and the clicking noise that I had just made. I jumped up in a panic as soon as I heard this and quickly filled the dog's water bowl and food upstairs and I made sure that her dog door was still accessible, and I got the hell out of there. I made sure to call my boss and tell him that I would make sure that her water and food were full until they got back, but would no longer be feeling comfortable enough to stay at their house when they are not home. I went to an abandoned farmhouse with a friend one night in 2015. At the time, we lived in a small town, and the rumor was that it had been kept empty since the 70s. Supposedly a murder-suicide had taken place there. Yeah, I know, stereotypical. This farmhouse looked like something straight out of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. As we approached, this farmhouse gave me straight-up horror movie vibes. We went upstairs first, and we found a huge Ouija board painted on the wooden floor in one of the rooms. There was nothing else left to see in any of the other rooms on the floor, so we decided to check out the basement. The staircase to the basement was rickety and covered in cobwebs and dust. My friend used their jacket to swat at the obstacles, and at the opening of the room, we realized that it was just a dirt floor that looked like it had been made with a shovel. We noticed a bunch of farm tools laying around. In the corner was a cow carcass that I can only describe as being mostly mummified. There was an old cooler on the ground towards the side where the stairs led down overhead. One of our friends who had been in this house before said that he had opened the cooler and it was stained with what looked like blood all inside of it. My friend seriously didn't want me to open it. He felt uneasy about it, but I wanted to anyways. The very moment I opened the cooler, both of our phones we were using for light died, and at the exact same time it got really cold in there. It sounds dumb, but our phones both had over 50% battery right before we went into that basement. It was almost like we were being punked. Needless to say, we got out of there in a hurry. I tried to go back later, but some hoodlums at my school had burned the place down. The atmosphere of that place was like nothing I've ever experienced. This experience is not scary, but just strange. When I was a kid, I was walking to school with my mom one day when we both saw something in the sky peeking out of the clouds. We had to look really hard at what it was because the object was so out of place in the sky. It was silver and cigar-shaped. The thing seemed like it was hovering in place. It moved slowly to the left behind a cloud, like it had just seen us notice it. The silver cigar-shaped craft hid behind the cloud for a moment and then moved just out from the cloud and disappeared out of sight. We stood there watching for a while to see if we would see it again, but we didn't. I call bullshit on most UFO videos that I watch on the internet or TV because most of them can be debunked by anybody. I've tried to explain to myself what we saw that day, but I've never seen a plane that can go forward, stop in mid-air, and then basically shoot out of sight in the blink of an eye. It was truly unexplainable, and I saw it with my own eyes, as well as my mother. I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist and feed into the whole Area 51 thing. It's possible that I could have seen some invention that our military has been working on, or something otherworldly. My brother Damon and I had the most unbelievable experience last night. We went for a walk to the end of our driveway to our mailbox, which is about 500 yards away from the house. Once we walked towards the driveway from the house, I felt like I was in a dream. Something was off. We get to the bend of the road, and I was on my phone with the flashlight on when I heard something in the wood line right beside us. The cemetery next to us almost never had any visitors. I pointed the light on my phone at the sound, and we both saw a shape of an odd-looking creature. As we looked closer, we made out more features. It was tall, skinny, and pale, and appeared to be hunched over with long arms. As we stood there staring at it, I tried to make sense of what we were seeing. Maybe it was just a damn deer. We started to walk down the driveway again, but we didn't take our eyes off of the thing. As we took a few steps, it moved with us as if mimicking our motion. I shit you not, I almost had a damn heart attack. Then I remembered we are on holy ground, and that thing was on the other side of the property line in the woods. It was just watching and walking with us. We shouted for it to leave us alone and get out of there. And we just walked like normal towards the end of our driveway again. We pretended like nothing had happened. The security light at the gate has a motion sensor. The light flicked on, and we figured it was still watching us or following us. Every single one of the dogs that lived down the street from us started howling together. Their howls were so loud that it gave us chills. For as long as we have lived there, we never had something like that happen. So we decided to sprint back to the house. We heard voices, like whispers coming from the cemetery. Then we heard what sounded like something knocking on a tree. We finally got to the house, went to our room, and talked about what we had just experienced. I felt like I was wigging out. After we calmed down, my brother and I decided we wouldn't let that thing scare us. Our friend messaged us and said that they were close to the gate. We headed back out of the house. We hit the bend of the driveway without incident. Then, without any warning, I almost stepped on a copperhead. I grabbed Damon's arm and yanked him back before he saw it. The snake started heading towards the wood line in the same direction and place that we had seen the thing. I tried to get the snake on camera because I knew no one would believe us. As we started walking to the mailbox to meet my friend, it felt like the light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe everything would slow down or stop. We told my friend what happened, and he was spooked, but also curious just like we were. We stood there at the gate, talked and smoked. Then our friend said he started to feel the night and how it was off. Something was up and we could feel something watching us. That's when we all decided to walk towards the tree line. I showed him where we saw the thing. We stood there and talked about it for a minute. Then we started to hear an owl call from the forest. Our friend started to change the subject and try to get the good vibes back. I couldn't stay focused though. My stomach started to feel nauseous, my legs started to ache, and my body felt weak. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience as we stood there. I saw the thing start circling us. I felt it move around us. I saw shadows in the tree line. That's when we looked towards the cemetery and we all saw the light, almost like the glow of a lantern. We all said "whoa" at the same time. We had never seen anything like that before. We tried to say it was a motion sensor, then it went off and never appeared again. Either way, that thing was still circling us. My friend, my brother, and I decided to try and get our minds off it again. As we started talking, the creatures in the woods seemed to get louder and louder. The crickets chirped, the owl started cooing again, and the branches snapped in the distance. So we started talking louder. Then, in the distance, we started hearing the howls of the dogs in the neighborhood again. It all seemed to be happening at once. The energy was intense. The moon had set fully in the sky at this point. It was a full moon. Everything around us got quiet again. We decided to call it a night. It was getting late. I feel like some will laugh at this story. I know that some will say we were tripping. We all know what we experienced, believe us or not. I've had medicine prescribed to me by a doctor in the past. I prayed about it, but never found someone to help. Things like this happen to me at night, but never like this. Normally, I just dream it. I don't know how to talk about it. I always pray and let it go, but honestly, it has gotten worse. I thought I would share this experience and see if anyone else has a similar story.